All right.
Started yet?
It started. Great way to kick things off.
We're off to a great start. We're back, everybody. Did you miss us?
We were off to the same start we've had like the last 10 starts, okay?
Yeah, something like that. All right, folks. Well, welcome to the latest edition of the American Praetorians live stream.
Pete, it's Slack Ops now. The people have spoken.
Nope. As I already said, I have veto, and veto has been exercised.
We'll make this happen if Coop has the courage.
Just
The courage
because of that poll, we're sticking with American Praetorians.
I didn't even start that poll. I've got nothing to do with this. I'm just a innocent third-party candidate.
Oh, I wasn't even aiming that at you, but you're both miscreants when you put your minds to it.
I'm
So,
when I...
So,
yeah, keep going.
Yeah, since it's and Bob Cruz is saying he even made a cover. Yeah, we saw it, Bob. Since it is October, and I did have a release this month that happens to be down the spooky side of the tracks, figured that we would, speaking of spooky, Coop just disappeared into the void. So if anybody hears him, just be careful that you don't answer if he calls your name.
He'll be fine. He's out there drifting in hyperspace. He knows people there.
Yeah. So yeah, I figured we'd talk about to use the old turn of phrase, spooks, boogers, and haints. And of course,
that's an old turn of phrase.
Yeah, there's actually a chapter in one of the Foxfire books, and that's the title.
Yep, I am broadcasting from.
I didn't even say anything, and you fixed me.
Wow. Oh yeah, you're not doing your part down there, buddy.
No.
I am broadcasting from my new Southern Command on Florida's beautiful Space Coast. You see, I got my luxury accommodations back here. I live where the tropical breezes blow.
Is that a Homestar Runner banner?
And a couple of tropical hurricanes.
Just a couple.
Is that a Homestar Runner banner back there?
That's Strong Badia's flag, sir. Please have some respect. Especially since you're on like video connection from 1999.
Yeah.
Return with a...
Speaking of return, yes, it's true.
I'll tell you what. I'll restart the computer and see if this...
Your CD tray is not a cup holder, sir.
That's what it is. He put his coffee cup on the CD tray and it bent everything, and now it's not working right.
First off, CD tray is much stronger than coffee cup, okay? Secondly,
Technical difficulties, please stand by.
Just love the way
Yeah, we've definitely got some.
It's looking
Got some spookiness going on tonight.
the last known photograph where he got banished to the shadow realm, right there. You know. So, Pete, while Coop is unfucking his thing there, why don't you tell us about your new book?
Well, decided to go back to a series I hadn't really touched in quite a few years. Jed Horn has never been one of my flagship series, but the truth of the matter is that I got my start as a storyteller, telling spook stories around campfires and causing Boy Scouts to lose a lot of sleep, or at least have not peaceful sleep. So the Jed Horn series kind of came naturally.
Silver Cross in a Winchester is the first work of yours that I read back in like 2014, 13 or 14. I'm reading it on my phone when I was working UXO at the Deseret Chemical Depot in Utah.
Yeah, I've renumbered the series a bit so that Nightmares, because Nightmares is chronologically the first, so it's number 1 in the series now, but it's actually the second one I wrote. Silver Cross and a Winchester was the first Jed Horn book. And
man, we need to get good back filling these awkward pauses.
Yeah. But, well, as Pablo has said, he's doing his Max Headroom cosplay for Halloween.
If you get that reference, you're old.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we have too many Zoomers in watching these streams.
What program? Microsoft Word. I mean,
Yeah, Word.
I
tried Scrivener once, and it was. Why am I breaking all of this apart when I can just write the story? So yeah.
I tried Corel Word Perfect word processor for a while, just because you can still buy Corel and own it, and they'll send you a CD and everything. Unlike Microsoft Word, which is now lease only, you gotta pay for your 365
subscription.
Yeah, but Corel Word Perfect works fine. It is a perfectly good word processor. It's just there were a couple of compatibility issues, and I've been using Word since like 20 years now, so I really don't want to learn a new word processor. So yeah,
I've tried LibreOffice, but there's things that I can do in Word that I can't do in the open source stuff.
Yeah. About a month now. The tropical breezes blow. We had Hurricane Milton passed right over my house. That was fun, but it wasn't bad by the time it got here. We didn't even lose power.
I have not actually read any Manly Wade Wellman. That may reduce my pulp cred a little bit, but
sound like a real name.
I'm sure it's not.
Manly Wade Wellman. Okay. You can't just make up a nickname and have it be Manly. Okay, no one's gonna call you that.
It's not quite on the same level as Dirk Slabarm.
I mean, almost though. So yeah, it is October already, and you can tell the fall is coming. Leaves are changing color here in Florida. It's like down to like 79 degrees during the day. So it's really no different here than it has been since I got here. A little bit cooler, a little bit less humid, but there are the same amount of feral peafowl running around as there ever. And that's something nobody warned me about in Florida, is that like the peafowl, they just wander around in little flocks like turkeys. And if you honk your car horn at them, they'll scream back at you. And they're everywhere.
That is, I have heard that peacocks do scream a lot.
They do. Well, I wouldn't say like these ones are a lot. It's just if you make a loud noise, they'll make one back to you, and it is the funniest thing. I've also watched them use a crosswalk. So at least they're obeying the rules of the road. They're better than
I've seen more wild turkeys around here in the last year than I have ever since moving to this area, but not using crosswalks. Usually there's no crosswalks where I tend to see them, but
also turkeys don't believe in law and order.
No, they're terrorists and agents of the other world. So,
but yeah, it's October already. 2024 is almost over. How about that election, huh? Are we all ready for that to be over?
Yeah.
I was about to say, I hope maybe after it's passed, Twitter will be a slightly less retarded, but it's just going to be worse.
You know it's just going to be worse.
It
Yeah,
has
we
never
talk about we're talking about Spooky, and Spooky is often the level of imbecility on Twitter.
I have been on Twitter since 2022, and it has never once gotten less retarded. There have been lulls in the retardation, but the trend is still upward.
Well, we can hope for a lull, but I'm not putting my money on it.
Yeah.
Even if I were a betting man, I wouldn't be putting my money on it.
Yeah. I don't think everybody's opinion on how the election's going to go is all just vibes right now anyway. You can't tell anything meaningful from the polls. So, but yeah, it's 2 weeks. Go vote. Let's get this shit over with.
Right?
Just remember,
manifesting again.
There'll be another election in 4 years. Don't lose your shit. Oh, hey, he's back.
I just got back from the election HQ. They said, no, this is the last one.
Oh, wow. Ah, I see another Diet Sunkist aficionado. Man of taste. There. There's Pete is drinking mystery liquid from a multicam flask.
It's called moonshine.
Well, I did mention the Foxfire books earlier, and the very first Foxfire book includes how to make moonshine and conceal the still from the revenuers.
Yeah, there you go.
Not saying I've actually done it, but
in 2014, I was on a UXO clearance up in the mountains of Colorado, and we came across an old still out there in the national forest. It had been out there for a number of years. It was kind of rusted away, but it was obvious what it was.
it can be very interesting, some of the stuff you find in the woods. We were doing a patrol-ex during my last workup, and apparently we ended up off of Camp Pendleton without necessarily realizing it right away, but we walked down into this little valley in the trees and basically found ourselves in the middle of a junkyard in the middle of nowhere at about 1 a.m. So you come out of the trees and there's just all these wrecked cars just sitting covered in leaves, and you start looking around for the shadow people. But it's interesting, some of the things that
shadow people would have taken the cars. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah. I guess if you buy it from locals, it's still moonshine. I mean, I've seen them selling moonshine in a liquor store in Tennessee.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if you're paying taxes on it, it's not moonshine, okay? It's just sparkling filter water.
If it's not coming out of the back of a 1970s Buick somewhere where none of the revenuers are going to see it, it's not really moonshine. I don't care how much it curls the hairs in your nose. But
that's why this microbrewery bullshit has gotten out of hand. It's because none of them are trying to hide it. Instead, they're trying to fucking market it.
Yeah, where's the fun in that? Right? Nobody wants to drink if you can just go do it.
We used to have hillbillies making, shitty alcohol, and now we have fucking hipsters.
Yeah. I think I'd take the well, I don't know. The hillbilly alcohol might just make you blind. The hipster stuff just tastes like crap.
No, we had all that stuff. So, like, I was stationed in North Carolina, right? And one of the guys in my platoon, we were in Western North Carolina or Eastern North Carolina. He was from Western North Carolina. So every fucking weekend, he would just go home, right? Like, he didn't have to wait for a fucking 96 or anything like that. So he would just go home, and then at the Sunday night, he would come back with just fucking mason jars of moonshine and like muscadine wine and all that shit that like his homeboys just distilled, out of their backyard and that shit. And so we just get a couple of jars each and fucking drink that shit on the catwalks. True to form, you can light that shit on fire.
Did you get tore up?
We got, as the kids say, lit. And the duty NCO was very upset about it on many occasions.
So, do I dare ask Jim how long that 3 gallons lasted?
3 days? Are you kidding me? Anything longer than that would be a waste.
Oh, homemade soju.
Regular soju has formaldehyde in it. What do you want to? Oh my God!
Yeah.
You embalm your own corpse. Yeah, it was. We spent 2 weeks in Korea in 2010, and we went out. We were at Osan. We went out into the Santan market in the evenings, and the next morning the guys were just looking kind of rough because they'd been out drinking. One of our guys said he almost drowned in the bathtub because he fell asleep with the. He said, "It was lucky I didn't cover the. I didn't cover the drain so it could drain. Otherwise, yeah." It was like 3 won, Korean won, for like a liter bottle of the shit. And
won, I take it as their currency and not the name of
it's
just a local Korean.
WON. Yeah, won. No, Juan.
It's like, Juan, get over here. We're trading you.
You got to be pretty desperate to grab Shine out of the trash and start drinking it next to the trash can.
I've met plenty of alcoholics that would be that desperate, yes.
So we were going to talk about spooky stuff. We ended up talking about a different kind of spirits.
It's like, wah, wah. And I just thought about for Coop's line there.
You can let it roll until we get to the really scary shit. Yeah. Well, anyway, one time at Fleet Week.
You had a setup there, Coop, that you missed. Right? You said I've known a lot of alcoholics to be that desperate, and if you'd like to learn more about the Marine Corps, talk to a recruiter.
Yeah.
Well, so the reason I didn't hear that is because you, just like the second time around, you were roboting, and I'm not going to restart my computer again, so we're just going to have to move past it.
You were roboting pretty bad there, doing your Max Headroom cosplay for Halloween. Pablo commented.
Well, you know me, I commit to the bit, so.
Yeah.
I'm not roboting, you're roboting. Shut up.
Hey, that's fighting's words where we come from, okay?
Yeah, anyone that has stood guard in the field out in the woods has heard some pretty weird shit for sure. I think I can corroborate that.
Half the time they're of the PFC rank.
Yeah. It's interesting the tricks your mind can start playing on you out in the field, though, particularly if you're doing land nav by yourself at 1 a.m.
Yeah, but that compounds with sleep deprivation.
So, yes.
When you're in a lot of the high-end training evolutions or just actually deployed and you're just in a weird op tempo, after that, 52 hours of no sleep, you don't know what's real and what's not. So
start seeing some real interesting stuff. It's not just hearing.
To the kids out there,
I shoot at them all the same, though. So.
If you're not interested in hallucinating horrors in the woods alone at 1 o'clock in the morning, talk to an Air Force recruiter. If you do want to do that, but still want to be treated better on the rest of the time, talk to an Air Force recruiter and then join SEER. It's not a real job, but you'll drink your own pee.
I was going to say, man, the PJs I've met, I don't think they need the one in the morning patrol to be that weird. They just naturally are.
It's
just... every PJ I've met, save for one, amazing dude, awesome people. But to a T, they're all just they're on their own different wavelength. except for that one guy that I also said wasn't a good dude. Like he was just a normal dude and he was an asshole. But everyone else, every other PJ was just like yeah, man, they're fucking awesome. But man, are they weird? It's like having that autistic little brother that you like brought along and because your mom made it, you bring him along with your friends to hang out, and you're just like, oh, please stop being weird.
It's like just don't say anything for 5 minutes, please.
I love him to death, though.
No, we don't want to hear about the lore. God damn it! There he goes.
Or I was working with another former PJ, and we were hurrying up and waiting, and the TV was on one of those Middle Eastern movie channels, and Coop knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I might even actually know the guy. Put his call sign in the private chat.
And Battleship came up.
Yes.
And I just, this has got to be the dumbest movie ever made. And his immediate response was, well, now I have.
Yeah.
So we ended up watching like the last half of Battleship while we were waiting. And it was just as dumb that time through as it was the first time I unfortunately saw it.
My counterpoint to it being the dumbest movie ever made is literally any of the other Transformers movies. And I say other Transformers movies because, let's be honest, Battleship is a Transformers movie.
It wanted to be, you know?
Yeah. But, full stop, it's a bonkers-ass movie. And it's one of the dumber things I've seen in my life. However, it has a charm to it that I'm like one of the only people that acknowledges, as it were, is that every adaptation of any other property, whether it be like a video game or a book or a board game, because they were doing lots of those, and the toys and all that shit, you can see them desperately trying to separate themselves from the dumber aspects of whatever they're adapting. And Battleship went the exact opposite route, where there's like, hey, we're going to add all this crazy ass shit that wasn't in the board game, but also we are going to factor in every little piece and part from the board game into our dumbass movie. Which is why, like, the alien spaceship, when it shoots the projectiles at them, they look like the Battleship pegs. And there's even a fucking scene where they have to, like, play the game of Battleship because all the radars are fucking gone or some shit. And they're working in tandem with the Japanese, even though Hasbro's not actually a Japanese company. But
yeah. They did miss an opportunity by not having Liam Neeson say, "You sank my battleship." But
no, there was no shortage of dumbass lines in that movie. But there was one good line in that movie.
In my head canon, Battleship is in the same cinematic universe as Battle LA. It's the same alien invasion, just different parts.
It's just doing two separate fucking fronts of the war.
Yeah, two theaters. You know, it was like it was their World War II, and they lost.
But there were a lot of dumb lines in Battleship, but there was one good line, and it's not good as in like, oh, this was excellent writing. It's just I fucking like it, and it's when Taylor Kish is just like, it's like, yeah, we fucking did it because of like Sun Tzu, fight the enemy where he's not. I finally get it after all these years. And then the guy he's working with like, yeah, except that's not what it means. He's like, it's not. He's like, no, it's not even close.
Even bad movies can have just moments of brilliance like that you remember. So,
yeah, and that moment of brilliance was called Thunderstruck by AC/DC.
Yeah, that's about the only redeeming value to that movie. Because let's face it, AC/DC can make anything cool.
Yeah,
it's like Jim Brewer said years ago. AC/DC could go out on stage and do the hokey pokey, and they'd make it rock.
I mean, like the only redeeming quality you didn't like Rihanna saying "Mahalo, motherfucker" and then self-censoring with a fucking 5-inch gun blast.
No.
It could have been. Besides, it could have been worse. When the Japanese wanted to make Battleship fighting aliens, they had them turn the battleship into a spaceship for some reason.
Yeah.
So,
you know what the hardest part about that would be? It's not converting a battleship into a spaceship. It's getting it from the bottom of the fucking ocean. Your battleship fucking sank. Okay? I don't care how big and powerful it was. We fucking annihilated it. And it couldn't even take out another battle. It has no other battleship kills.
It has a 0-to-1 kill death ratio.
I mean, it's sank some other boats, but they were fucking boats. Like, it was a destroyer and a destroyer escort, And those things went down fucking fighting. The Samuel B. Roberts and the fucking, I think it's the USS Johnston, at the Battle of off Samar. Those two fucking ships alone, by just their hyper aggressive actions, caused an entire ship fleet to think that they were fighting a peer battleship fleet, and then they fucking deuced out. But no, it was just like it was a fucking escort carrier, task force that was like left to fend for themselves because Halsey wanted to beeline north and chase a distraction or a diversion.
Hold up, was there actually a Teddy Ruxpin movie? I can't tell if he's joking or.
There probably was. But also, Bob, okay, the "for me it was Tuesday" line from Street Fighter, how dare you? That is not the only good line from Street Fighter. I am tired of that movie being, like, maligned unfairly, okay? If you go back and watch that movie, it's actually fucking funny. It's legit. It's 90s cheese, sure.
I mean, Raul Julia
You can't watch the Street Fighter movie and tell me it's any sillier than the actual Street Fighter games, okay?
Raul Julia wanted to make a live-action G.I. Joe movie for his kids because he was dying. And he basically did that. And, like, Jean-Claude Van Damme was just drunk all the time and blitzed out on drugs and banging what's-her-name, So everybody had a good time. And this ridiculous video game adaptation in the movie from the 90s, man, it's come up with a better looking, like blue camouflage uniform than the fucking United States Air Force did. So,
I mean, that's not a high bar. But...
No.
But I really liked how
honestly, Hollywood did a lot better job in the 90s than they had any business doing.
Well, yeah, because their job is to actually make shit look cool. I want to imagine that, they said, all right, we're making this shitty video game movie. All right, let's model our stuff after the UN. All right, what are the UN uniforms look? Oh, wow, that looks horrible. Yeah, make something look even better. Let's just do the tricolor woodland, but in blue. Let's do that.
Yeah.
There are so many good fucking scenes and lines from Street Fighter. I am so sick of people acting like it's a bad movie.
It was.
It's so good if you go in there expecting it to be what it actually is.
I mean, you can't take it any more seriously than the movie takes itself, which isn't very serious.
No,
bro, the fucking the evil world conquering dictator is concerned about like how big the food court is because all the franchises are going to want in on his fucking utopian, fatherland thing that he's making.
He has a painting of himself as a clown, like what
John Wayne Gacy.
Yes, in the background in one of the scenes, and he's still wearing his peaked cap when he's trying to seduce what's her name with like a fucking
Hugh Hefner's like cap. Smoking jacket shit.
Yes.
Is there any scene in the movie where he's not wearing the peaked cap? Is there any scene in the movie where he's not wearing the peaked cap? Like, I'm pretty sure like he wakes up out of bed and he's got it on. Like,
you know what? I've actually seen one of these Street Fighter anime films from the 90s, and the Street Fighter live action movie is way better. So.
Probably not a high bar to clear, to be perfectly honest. But again,
literally every fucking fighting movie fighting game adaptation movie is terrible, except Street Fighter. And for the time, Mortal Kombat, the first one.
I mean,
it's not a great movie by any standards, but what you got at the time, it was like the only good video game movie you had ever.
oh God, they made another one.
Yeah, well, they
Yeah.
made a sequel to that one, and it was like
No,
maybe a fifth of the budget.
They made one like 3 years ago.
Yeah, it was.
Didn't they make a couple recently?
They're doing a sequel to the one that Mike's talking about, but the one that Mike is talking about, there were moments where you were like, all right, that's cool, and then, but yeah, absolutely. The more you thought about it, and compared to like what the trailer put out, it was just dog shit.
Yeah, I thought it was cool when I saw it in the theater because I was, a kid. So
Yeah. Yeah, and you didn't know that the CGI was ever going to be that bad.
I remember them doing like TV specials about the CGI for how groundbreaking and cool it was, right? They were bragging about that. And this is after Jurassic Park.
Bro, it looked like an asset from you remember that Reboot show?
Yes.
Yeah, it looked like they took one of those and put that in live action. Oh,
Yeah.
And, something Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat have in common, besides both being based on Japanese fighting games, they both feature Angkor Wat as a set piece in them. So that one temple
Mortal Kombat's not Japanese.
What?
Yeah, Mortal Kombat's like one of the most distinctly American fighting game franchises ever.
That's right. It is, isn't it?
Yeah. So how dare you sully the Mortal Kombat with?
I don't think I ever actually played any of the games. I was really into Primal Rage for a while when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Remember that one?
They've been trying to. I think there was like a movie planned for that, and it's been in development hell for like 30 years.
I mean,
it's never getting made. Nobody knows what Primal Rage is anymore. But
it's an interesting idea, It's like these. The world is reduced to caveman civilization, and these dinosaur deities are fighting for control of the world. And
well, it wasn't just dinosaurs. They also had like the big ass white gorilla thing.
Yep, the gorilla. There were a couple gorillas, a couple dinosaurs, and there was magic and powers. And
how did that not get adapted in the 90s? Because I mean, you had, if nothing else, the Sci-Fi Channel should have done it, given some of the other stuff they made.
Maybe they thought trying to make a T-Rex do like finishing moves in a fight was just too much.
Doing that little tail spin thing, fucking.
And the T-Rex was named Sauron too, which was the best.
Well, I don't know. You look at some of the stuff that Kentucky Ballistics has done with the T-Rex. The inflatable T-Rex costume.
Oh man, you want to talk about dinosaurs and fighting games? Do you remember Killer Instinct?
Not really.
Oh, so if you were ever in an arcade, and I all of my main familiarity with arcades is from when I was like playing hockey growing up. They always had like an arcade there. When you would get to the rink at 6 a.m. and you're waiting for the rest of the team to show up, you would just go to the arcades and fucking play all your shit. But so Killer Instinct, it's just the most bonkers shit from all over. So they have a guy who is made of fire, an ice Martian, a fucking like ninja from Tibet and shit. They have a velociraptor, they have a werewolf, and then they have like some a Viking and like an Aztec temple guardian chick. Like it's just they fucking went in every direction they possibly could.
So
and of course, there was a black boxer with the fucking high top haircut too. They have.
So you're saying that dev team then changed careers and became the Keltec R&D department?
Keltec has better designs.
Maybe they could get better quality Coke.
Same fucking energy.
That's an interesting question.
So I would say a third of it is, because the Predator is like 3 movies put in the one. It's like 3 different genres put in the one. So
it certainly scared the crap out of me when I saw it on TV when I was a kid. You know, I was like, that was scary.
Start hearing that. Start hearing that sort of clicking sound in the.
Yeah. The Predator didn't scare me too, like the movie Predator didn't scare me too much, because before I had actually like watched it, and I watched it young too. But I've told this story before. I would go to like card playing tournaments and that shit as like a 9-year-old, and outside one of the places that we would go at the mall where we would play these tournaments, they had a fucking big ass life-size photorealistic mannequin of the Predator with the mask off and all that shit. And it was just standing out there the entire fucking time. So I had seen this thing like in broad daylight 1,000 fucking times before I ever watched the movie. So it didn't scare me that way. What scared me as a kid, though, was the original Terminator.
Just this metallic skeleton that won't stop and just.
No, the 80s hairdos. That's.
Oh, yeah.
No, yeah. It was like, as a kid, it wasn't even the design of the skeleton in itself. It was the jerky, the uncanny valley from like the jerky stop motion animation and that stuff. Like the way it moved, just something was off. And you're just like, oh, fuck, this feels weird.
Yeah.
From a couple of scenes that I remember from when I was a kid. I was little when I saw these. I have no context for them. The memory might not even be accurate because I was so little. But the scenes stuck with me because I remember them scaring me. One was some made-for-TV movie, I think, because my mom was watching it on TV with my dad, and it was a guy dressed in a black cloak, right? And he was like stalking this woman in her big mansion house and tormenting her. And she was in a wheelchair, and he got remote control of her powered wheelchair, was making him come towards her and was terrorizing her. And just the guy, he looked like one of the ring wraiths from Lord of the Rings film, kind of, right?
Well, I mean, there you go. Like, as much as I will complain about the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings movies, they are good movies. And the ring wraiths in there, like, he definitely remembered his start as a horror director when he was making those movies. Like, a lot of how it approaches, like, the Uruk-hai and the orcs and the goblins, all the shit in Moria and the ring wraiths. Like, the Lord of the Rings movies really shine because of those horror elements. Like, the confrontation at Weathertop, especially, where they, like, silently come in from the fucking shadows and just surround the fucking hobbits and that shit. So
there was that, some brief scene where a skeleton was sitting in an abandoned, like a cobweb-filled room, and it just kind of turned its head towards the camera, and that scared them. I must have been like 5 when I saw it. That scared the bejesus out of me. I remember this like 35 years later. You know, it's
when was the first time you saw The House on Haunted Hill?
Oh God!
I was about to say that kind of sounds like The House on Haunted Hill. Which
I saw The House on. I remember seeing The House on Haunted Hill because I was older. I saw the whole movie, like the original one with Vincent Price.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And when you go back and watch it later, it's hilarious. I've seen the riff tracks of it. It's great.
The riff tracks live version of House on Haunted Hill is one of the best riff tracks out there.
But that jump scare with the witch person, where then she glides away on roller skates or whatever, that got me. That got me the first time I saw that.
Yeah, right. And it goes back to like what I was talking about with the Terminator exoskeleton. It's that uncanny valley of like, why is she floating? That's not how people fucking move. Something's unearthly about this. Like, it's not.
The genius part of House on Haunted Hill is because I was quite a bit older when I first saw it. Is you obviously a lot of it was, if I remember correctly, Vincent Price's character manipulating things to try to get to his target.
Right.
But there were just enough things that couldn't be necessarily be explained by his actions and his plan that
instead
you're
they
left
were by that little leprechaun guy with the knife.
You're left at the end with, okay, this was a scam, but there was probably something else going on behind the scam as well.
Yeah.
Now, have you seen the remake of House on Haunted Hill?
No.
It's not
No.
good.
I try to avoid remakes as much as possible.
It's not good.
I thought I had for a second, but then I remembered that was just the remake of The Haunting. That's one was like Catherine Zeta-Jones and like Owen Wilson and those guys. Yeah. So that was a remake of a different movie. The original Haunting's pretty good too. But yeah, I have no the only old ass horror movie that benefited from a remake was The Thing.
I have a copy of the 56, The Thing from Another World, but I never actually watched it, so I don't know how it necessarily stacks up. Obviously, it's not going to have the effects that.
Yeah. And they knew it at the time. Like they weren't thinking, hey, just because this is like low res and black and white, like we still need to make it scary. And so the original focuses just as much, if not more, on the paranoia aspect because it's about communism. So it was, going in with that in mind and that is the focus. Whereas John Carpenter, he kept those elements because he grew up as a fan of the original, but he was also like, yeah, my effects department can make some really creepy shit, so we're putting this in the movie.
No, chest opens up and chomps them.
Yeah, Invasion of the fucking Body Snatchers was remade, and Nicole Kidman. And
yeah, they may even been remade a couple of times.
Oh, I'm sure.
All right, I'm going to confess a movie that did scare the shit out of me, and I don't even have the cop out of saying I was a kid. Right. I saw The Grudge in 2005, right?
Yeah.
05, somewhere in there. Not the original, not the Japanese one, but the remake with the American version with Sarah Michelle Gellar, directed by Sam Raimi. That movie gave me fucking nightmares. I am not. I swear to God.
How long was it between watching that movie? How long did it take you to finally take a shower again?
The shower didn't bother me. It was like, I think what got me was just like how the ghost would appear like right there.
Yeah.
There's some pretty cheap jump scares if you think about it. They did them really well, right? But I remember I had gone home because I was working in Qatar at the time, and I came home for a vacation. And I was staying in a motel, and I was walking down the stairwell, and I opened the door, and I got down one flight of stairs, and the door closed, but it was on one of those air compressions, the piston, so it doesn't slam, and it did that creaking thing like that. The back of my neck stood up. It's like,
oh,
yeah, like
So
too much.
it wasn't quite to that level, but when I saw The Ring, I was sharing an apartment with two other dudes, and I was sleeping on the couch in the room with the TV.
Yeah. you know what was great about that is that came out right when like cell phones hadn't become popular yet. Like they were a thing, but not every kid had one,
Yeah.
And so it was like, yeah, how did you watch scary movies back then? Well, you went to people's houses for like a sleepover or a birthday party or some shit. And like when it got dark, to be like, hey, check this out. This is like the scariest fucking movie you'll ever see. And they show it. And then everybody is like on the couch, fucking with the popcorn and that shit. This old stuff. Guys, return with a V to this shit, please. But you still had the phones like on the fucking, desk or hanging up on the wall and that shit. And so it never crossed anybody's mind that somebody with a cell phone was there and you couldn't see them dial. so they would wait for that perfect scene, and then they would fucking phone the house that they were staying at, and the phone would ring, and all these girls were just jump, like freaking the fuck out.
So, not my story. A guy that I did some training with years ago. will remain nameless but he was stationed at Guantanamo in the Marine Corps on guard duty. And there's a reason why he will no longer, he had no interest in reading any of the Jed Horn stories, doesn't watch scary movies.
Those coconut rats finally got to him, huh?
Well, apparently, a woman and her kid or kids several years before had tried to cross the line basically from Cuba into Gitmo to defect and didn't make it. And I guess either it's been a long time, but it was either sharks or gators in the water got to them. Well, this had happened several years before, and he swears he heard it happen.
Yeah,
in the dark, in the middle of the night. Said he, in that particular tower, he heard footsteps coming up the steps. And then the hatch, which weighed like 30, 40 pounds, opened on its own.
Yeah.
So he is, it was very easy to kind of poke him. Mm. Just start to hint at spook stories, and he didn't want to hear any of it because he'd been there and done that.
Bro, there's something to be said about being stuck in a fucking tower at night and you're not allowed to leave. That fucking shit just seems scarier than it really is, or it really is that scary. Like, mine's not a fucking supernatural thing at all, but it felt like it at the fucking time. Let's see. It was like around maybe a little bit after midnight, between like midnight and 2 a.m. and that shit. And I'm standing post in our little fucking village in Afghanistan, and it's pitch dark, like new moon, no ambient light. The fucking MVGs aren't helping you at all. And around that time, we had a COG that would walk around and like try and sneak up on people and catch them sleeping and that shit, which was fake and gay, but he was doing it. And so I feel like a hand on my shoulder, right? Like he's grabbing me to turn me around, and I turn around on my own. I'm like, dude, I'm awake. Like, you're not sneaky. And there's nobody behind me. Like, I'm looking at nobody, and there's still the hand on my shoulder. And so I freaked the fuck out. I'm brushing this thing off, and I can hear it. But it's a camel spider, right?
Oh God, that's worse.
Yeah.
I'd rather be a ghost.
And it's skittering around in
so
my.
Much worse.
It's skittering around in my fucking tower, and it sounds just. You remember that scene from Aliens where the facehuggers are running around inside the medical bay and all that shit? Yeah, it sounds just like that shit. And I got my M16A4, right? Like this big honking fucking thing. It's like 48 inches with a solid buttstock. And I am fucking trying to fucking smash this thing with the buttstock of my fucking rifle. And I finally get it, right? And you just hear the most sickening as I like fucking get it. And I'm like, ah! Oh! Ah! and I just fucking, like traumatized. Like, I'm speechless for the next like hour and a half, however fucking long it was, until I get relieved. And like,
just standing there shaking.
My relief comes up. He's like, "Hey man, anything happened?" I'm like, "Nope, nobody shot at us." And I fucking walk out like straight back to my fucking tent. And I get woken up like fucking maybe an hour and a half later, around like 5:30ish. I know I've given like 6 different times, whatever. So like right as sunrise is coming up, right? And I get woken up and they're like, "Hey man, Tower 3 is fucking asking for you." And I was like, "What the fuck? What did I leave there?" Okay, whatever. And I fucking walk up there, and my relief is still there, and he's like, "What the fuck is this shit?" And he's like pointing down, and it looks like a hand is just like coming through the fucking wood. So yeah, hey, sometimes ghosts are better than like the actual fucking wildlife in these places.
Yeah.
The most frightened I ever got in Afghanistan was the shack we lived in had been like, we took over that patrol base from the Canadians, and the shack they built hard buildings instead of just tents. We had like plywood shacks. And the one we lived in had been there like telephone switchboard. But it was a pretty nice building, and there was like a porch that they had left 3 full-size refrigerators in, covered in pornography, right? Because that's how they do in Canada, right? But one of them we just used for bottles of water.
Well,
So
wait, this was Canadian pornography?
Oh yeah. It was like there was a
So
girl
they were just like covered in maple syrup and shit.
There was one. I remember there was a chick sitting on a toilet holding a toilet brush, like sexy toilet brush. You're like, what?
See, I was gonna say beady eyes and flappy heads and all, but
Yeah. Anyway, so
Hey, girl, you seem like the girl that was scraping my face.
so I got a case of water, the Haji water that had been sitting out in the sun, so you get all the microplastics in it, right?
Yeah.
I'm stacking the water bottles into a nice 64 bottle pyramid on the bottom of this fridge, and something scuttles across my hand and disappears into the bottles, and it's a fucking spider about yay big. I'm like, I don't fucking do spiders. Okay. I was like, I just backed up. I closed the door. I went into the shack. I'm like, we got to blow up that refrigerator. We got to take it to the demo.
Did you ever see those spiders over there? They weren't camel spiders, but they were like this long, and they were very like long and skinny, and they had like the spindliest fucking legs, and they were translucent. Like,
I think I've heard of it, but I don't think I saw one.
Yeah.
Fun fact, the camel spider isn't actually a spider. It's a tailless scorpion.
yeah.
It's not there,
no, it's an alien. Fucking,
No.
but so like we had those translucent spiders, like 1 or 2 crawl across like the wall in our COC, and then one jumped out and like jumped on the chest of my lieutenant, and so after that we took a guy that was just he was supposed to be on like extra duty, like filling sandbags and that shit. And we're just like, hey man, I'm going to give you a break. You need to follow the LT around with your rifle at the ready. And just if anything bursts out of his chest, you need to fucking pop him. Okay. Like, oh man. But, dude, Afghanistan is not a real place. It's a sci-fi world, right?
It's another planet.
Seems like a dream at this point. It's been 12 years for me. So
I mean, because it looks like fucking Mars, right? And then like the people act like they're out of Stargate. The fucking spiders are fucking face huggers. Their dogs are fucking werewolves. All right, like those things are lichens. They're not fucking, and they're fucking hornets. We call them Taliban bees, but they're like the Japanese murder hornets that everybody was afraid of from fucking 4 years ago. So it's like their crows are dragons. Like Afghanistan isn't an actual AO. It's a sci-fi original movie.
Well, to be fair, the camel spiders aren't limited to Afghanistan. They are in Iraq as well.
I know. I saw them there too.
We were working. One of the guys we were kind of working with was a former SF dude.
Yeah.
And if they could crawl or slither, this dude would catch it and try to make a pet out of it. Like he had aquariums, he had terrariums in his room when he had snakes and lizards, and he had one of these outside of the barracks, and he had a camel spider in it.
Yeah.
And this thing just like it would rear up onto the glass, and it's be scraping at the glass with its mouth parts as you walk past. I'm going to shoot that thing.
The bullets won't do anything.
But a buddy of mine was saying, "What is it with SF guys who don't want to kill shit?"
Oh, we had a couple guys who they would
Speaking
like
of Afghanistan looking like Mars. This is they called it the Red Desert south of the river where I was at.
Yep, that definitely looks like Afghanistan.
Yeah, you can see.
Was that over by Sistani?
I know it was south of the Dowry Run River.
Sistani's the big ass fucking desert in Helmand.
No, I wasn't anywhere near Helmand. I was in Kandahar province.
Okay.
I think this was if you kept going south from here, you'd end up in Iran.
Well, I'm sure many Taliban did go south.
Somebody asked about the Marines killed giants in Afghanistan. Did you kill a giant in Afghanistan?
Look, there are NDAs that were signed, so I can neither confirm nor deny anything regarding this subject.
I saw an Afghan ginger. That was pretty weird.
You saw an Afghan what?
An Afghan ginger, like an Afghan redhead.
Oh, we saw tons of those. Yeah.
Like somebody's dad was a Russian soldier. Okay.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
we actually called our Spetsnaz.
Yeah. Yeah. There are a lot of them out there, and I'm sure it had to do with the Russians, or it's just the Khyber Pass was a major part of the Silk Road for centuries. So so I'm sure they had a lot of admixtures there. But then there's also there are the natural redheads that are weird in Afghanistan, and then you have like the unnatural redheads because they do that little fucking henna dyeing shit on everybody's hair. So
Speaking of,
but yeah. Hey, so about the giant in Afghanistan, what they might be referring to is at one point we did fight somebody who was like over 6 feet, and for an Afghan, that's fucking giant. So he wasn't Bin Laden though. We missed out on that one.
No. No, unfortunately, the SEALs got that one.
Yeah, but just not that SEAL.
No.
Have you ever seen shapes in the haboobs, the dust storms and that stuff? Like when
No, I did not.
You think you see something lurking in the back?
No, I did not see. I did not see the mummy coming out of the haboob. No.
No, I'm not saying it like turns into a shape like from the mummy. But have you ever seen like a wave or a picture of like a wave and you can see the silhouette of a dolphin or a shark in it? You ever
not in person, no.
Like a shark or something?
What's up?
Like a shark or something?
Oh, but yeah.
This
so I
Goop was doing over there.
No, I got the reference. I just don't remember exactly what it's from.
Neither do I.
I know it's a Riff Tracks thing,
but if you can see what I'm sharing on my screen here, this is what Coop was doing in Afghanistan. Notice the giant is in fact a ginger.
I did not stab my fellow Marines. No, what you got? You're talking about we were talking about sleep deprivation earlier. It doesn't need to be night or dark for you to be sleep deprived. And there were plenty of times where we would see the sandstorms rolling in, and I swear you could see like fucking the shadow of Godzilla or some Lovecraftian bullshit going on in the back. You're just like, oh fuck, now we're fighting monsters.
Yeah, Cthulhu's here.
Yeah,
Get
the Mark 11. I don't think the 5.56 is gonna do shit.
On the other hand, hey, we're fighting monsters. I mean, guys, change your pace.
I'll have to call Larry. Where's my money, bitch?
It wasn't a. It was actually the middle of the night, but that was mainly because we mainly moved at night. But a buddy of mine was driving in Iraq. I think this was in like 05, 06. Going straight down the road and just suddenly stomps on the brake and just about gives his team leader a concussion. His TL was like, "What the hell?" Well, I almost hit the guy in the spacesuit who was walking across the road. Get in the back. You're not driving anymore.
Well, the team leader is going to feel like a real silly goose when he comes up against that guy with the spacesuit.
There was a trucker movie starring Patrick Swayze called Black Dog, right? And I've never seen it, but I heard about it when I was in truck school because one of the old instructors who was driving before there was they even had commercial driver's licenses.
I thought you were going to say it was on the syllabus. Like, welcome to Chuck School. You have to watch this Patrick Swayze movie
But
and Duel by Steven Spielberg.
they said that
And this Patrick Swayze movie.
one of the reasons we have commercial driver's license requirements now is because they would do things like, because you get paid by the mile when you're driving a truck. So truckers just pop amphetamine pills and just drive. They said you can be so tired, you just hallucinate. Like one of them said, the thing where Patrick Swayze sees a black dog that isn't really there. He said, yeah, that's real. If you're that tired, you need to stop driving. That's not safe.
Like, and the worst part is it's the same black dog. Trust me. Call the union. We all know him.
We don't know how he gets around. And it's usually not a good thing when we see him, but that's the same one.
Turns out Big Trouble in Little China was just Jack after fucking going all night through there. Like, none of that shit actually happened. It was just him just be like, man, I'm fucking tired.
He was actually in the cab.
Oh, there's Chinese people. They must be trying to fight me and doing spells and shit.
No, he was actually in the truck the entire time. So, not quite.
That's a good one.
That's a good one.
But here's the other thing, is I would not put it past the guys at 29 Palms to dress like Master Chief and go out just to fuck with a unit that's out there.
Now, they might get their asses kicked later.
Oh, they might. Well, that's assuming they don't get left behind by Lance Corporal Rothers, don't you forget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For anyone missing the context on that one, that is a story going back a very long time that gets told at 29 Palms every single CAX or Mojave Viper or whatever they're calling it now.
ITS.
So that nobody forgets, but there was a Lance Corporal who got left behind on road guard. This is probably 30 years ago now.
I want to say like either 84 or 86, something like that.
So more than 30 years ago. Yeah. But he got left behind. Like his unit straight up went home.
They didn't realize they left him until they landed in North Carolina.
Yeah. He started trying to walk his way out and never made it. Yeah. So he's still out there somewhere.
Yep. But the point is, you will always hear about that shit anytime you even think about going to CAX. So.
Yep. But so every recon Marine.
Maybe Lance Corporal Rothers would have been a Halo fan, and as a ghost, he just appears as Master Chief. And your boy really did see him.
My first EOD flight chief was an old master sergeant he'd gone into the schoolhouse in like 1984. He was already an E5 when he went through, right? So he was old guard. He just did whatever he wanted because he'd been there forever, right? When the guys would go out on the range, because we'd go out to the Utah Test and Training Range, the big bomb range there, and do these big range clearances for, he got there for a week or 2 weeks or whatever. He would tell all the young airmen that there was like a crazy caveman who lived out there, and you could see him watching in the hills. So he would sneak off, go out there behind a rock, strip naked, and sit up there and squat and watch him from a distance so they believe the story about the caveman. Now, coming from anybody else, I would have called bullshit on this, but having worked with him, I 100% believe that's true. I 100% believe he was out there naked, squatting on a rock to fuck with his airmen.
So every recon Marine who's been to BRC or ARS back in the day has hallucination stories out of patrol phase, because you're going to hallucinate in patrol phase.
Oh, I thought it was because they issued you drugs.
No. It's just
recon. Here, have some amphetamine.
No, that's buds.
You're not an Air Force pilot. You don't get amphetamines. Pilots call them go pills.
But I remember I was holding security for the Ford rep, the Ford report down by the river. It's like 2 a.m. I cannot tell you off the top of my head what day this was, because I probably couldn't have told you at that point either. But I'm on a knee. We're in the bush, like just dense veg down in the the Camp Pendleton river bottoms. And this guy in wingtips with a chick on each arm walks up to me out of the bushes. I blinked and he disappeared.
Man, you missed it.
Yeah.
He was about to invite you to the party, and you were just like, like, no, I'd rather blink instead.
I mean, it was probably better than a couple nights later when I watched the entire team get up and move out of the ORP, realized I didn't have my ruck on, wasn't ready to move, panicked, and then figured out that nobody had actually moved.
That's the worst, is when you imagine it, and not so much like hallucinating images, but like imagining that like you need to do something that you don't actually need to do.
That's a good way to wake up in a panic too. Like if you thought there's something you're supposed to be doing and you like, but it'll get
we were in an OP in Iraq. I was the ATL, so me and this other one of our boots were on rear security. Again, early in the morning, it's still completely dark. I wake up and think I'd fallen asleep on security. Sit straight up, realize, oh no, old boy's actually on security. That's right. I'm supposed to be sleeping right now. He told me later that I had just sat up, just like I hadn't moved or made a sound. I just sat up like Dracula out of his coffin, scared the piss out of him.
Which, given your height and complexion, is even scarier.
Sticking more with our theme for the night, because we could sit here for all night and tell military stories, and I love listening to military stories. But I have a ghost story. It's a secondhand ghost story because it came from my mom.
Okay. Before you get into that, though, let's all acknowledge that everything we've said doesn't even match the scariest moment in all of our lives. When you get back from deployment and you don't have your rifle on you, like every waking second, and you forget that for a little bit, and then you're just like, I don't have my rifle. Where the fuck it? Oh, like that half second before you've realized, no, retard, you're back in the States. Like it's in the armory.
My coming home scare was brief. A friend picked me up from the airport, was driving me home, and we were on the freeway. We were on the 215 Beltway around Salt Lake City, and there was a trash bag on the side of the road. It's like with something in it, so it was staying put, right? And as we got close to it, I just went to say something, and then I remember where the fuck I was. So
those aren't explosives; those are just drugs.
I usually manage to not react, but when you know, I don't know if around they have the traffic counting cables they'll string across the road. I still don't like driving over those damn things.
Yeah. Now, one time when this is before I was even went into the Air Force, I was working security at the Alliant Tech Systems facility outside of Salt Lake. And this is a humongous 8,400 acre facility because they manufacture rocket motors there for the ATK and bought out Thiokol. And they were making rocket motors there and they test them. So the reason the facility was so big is because there's got to be space between explosive storing bunkers and earth-covered magazines. And the place had been there since before World War II. It was before Thiokol, it was Hercules powder, and they made gunpowder and dynamite. But every so often I'd do a patrol around the perimeter and check the fences and just see what was going on out there. It was a 12-hour shift. It was night shift. Well, I stop and I check this one gate, and I'm walking back, and I see a bag on the ground, like a plastic bag, and there's obviously something like lumpy in it, you know. And just from how it was laying and how it was sitting there, and the shape and the size, I looked at it, and I'm like, there's a fucking baby in that bag. I gotta look now. I'm thinking to myself, okay, I walked up to it, I'm like, Mike, you're about to be scarred for life. There is a fucking dead baby in that bag. Somebody died. There's a baby died, and somebody threw their baby out on the side of the road, and you're gonna find it, and it's gonna be a long day. So I was prepping myself, right? And I reach out, and I start to lift the bag, and there is blood, right? I lift it more. It's a fucking chicken, a rooster. Somebody lost a fucking cockfight, and they just tossed his ass out there. Didn't even bury him.
At least the rooster lost, not the baby.
Right?
Yeah.
Gotta be honest, though, that's a badass baby if it can win a cockfight against a trained rooster like that. We named him Turok, dinosaur killer.
But no, yeah, my mom's ghost story. My mom grew up in it was rural back then, Maryland, near the Chesapeake Bay. I don't know exactly.
I mean, the entire state of Maryland is by the Chesapeake Bay, but
thank you, Cooper. And she lived in a house that was built before the Civil War. It was an old house. There were slave chains in the basement. They found someone buried in they had a dirt basement. They found someone buried in there. They dug up and put him in the driveway.
Was it over by like St. Mary's?
Maybe. That sounds familiar. Yeah. And but she said, and her and her sister both swore up and down that they would see an apparition that would just kind of like lean in the doorway, just kind of look in on them at night sometimes, and they said she never got a hostile feel from it or anything, but it was there. And in a house that old, you know, even if there's nothing there, your imagination can run wild. But later on, when she lived there, after her own mother had passed away, apparently, like, the local kids thought it was like the haunted house. And there was like she heard there was this rumor that it was a haunted house and a witch lived there. When she told me the story, she saw these little kids sneaking up to the house, like they were going to go check out the scary haunted house. So she goes inside, goes to the mirror, and gets her hair done up all crazy, and puts some extra makeup on, so she looks like a witch. And like popped up in a window, we just scared the bejesus out of these little kids, and they went running off.
I mean, that's an incredibly Maryland story. Maryland is just one of the most haunted states because we have so many fucking like burnt down, abandoned insane asylums and like tuberculosis sanatoriums and all that shit.
War battlefields and just plus
all that stuff. You have Baltimore. That entire city's haunted. So, at least I hope so. Because
haunted or cursed. I mean, it's
kind of both. I wouldn't be surprised if they're. They probably have like some fucking.
Both is definitely a possibility.
Yeah. But
there's at least,
and then instead of having like people dress up as witches and scare people from abandoned houses, we just have MS-13 that would do that. So,
but I don't think I've ever actually seen anything that goes like spooky or ghosty or anything like that. I've tried. I went on a ghost hunt with some people at a tour at the Barren Woolen Mills. And if you're from northern Utah, you know what I'm talking about. It was a wool mill that was supposedly like super haunted. And it's burned down now. Somebody torched the place, but you go there and there was a tour. But some of the spooky atmosphere of going into an old wool mill in the middle of the night with no lights is lost when there's a gaggle of like 30 people in there, right?
They've all got their phones and cameras out and shit.
This was 2010. Camera phones weren't really great back then yet, but you know, there's just so many people. It's kind of just like a camp out more than it's anything scary. But I did get to see I didn't see any apparitions or ghosts, but I did get to see the Contagion of Fear in operation, right? Because it was a bunch of nitties scaring themselves silly in the dark. But remember, because they were looking up these stairs and they all swore they could see something, like multiple people. Like a woman started to scream. They thought, swear to God, there was an apparition at the top of the stairs.
I see it too. I see it too.
I'm looking and I don't see shit, right? Like, what the fuck are you people talking about? Like, am I impervious to ghosts? The answer is yes. I'm impervious to ghosts, unfortunately. So.
Me too, but it's because of my proton pack that I fucking carry around.
sometimes, like I've known enough people that I think there are varying degrees of sensitivity to this sort of stuff. That some people see and sense stuff that other people just don't.
Yeah, and they
I
all
don't.
live in Sedona.
But if speaking of the contagion of fear, that was where I was going. Do you ever see the scariest places on Earth? That I think it was a Discovery show.
Yeah.
Yeah,
in the late '90s.
That one was Discovery, and it was before like this amateur ghost hunter craze happened, where like
Yeah.
that shit was cool. But it was like the Deadliest Warrior like
You
presentation.
could, particularly when they did the challenge of stay in this place for one night.
Yeah.
You could tell when they were psychic. Like sometimes you could kind of watch it like there's something a little weird going on there. Other times it's like, okay, I know exactly what that is, and you're just freaking yourself out.
Yeah.
Like there was some like witch mound or something where somebody had to stay, and I'm watching. It's just like that's a raccoon. That's definitely a raccoon.
That's even more reason to be scared, though.
But yeah,
an angry enough raccoon will fuck you up.
I remember like the mid 2010s when there were all these ghost hunting shows. My favorite, though, my absolute favorite, and my ex used to like this, and I got to like it too. Was I can't remember the name of it. It was Ghost Adventures with Zach Bagans.
Yeah.
The guy with the great hair. Because he would just get there. He's like, he wants to fight the ghost. He's like, fuck you, ghost. Start yelling at air. Like, he wants to antagonize the ghost. And it was just charming in this way. Like maybe he's actually there yelling at air, or maybe he's faking it, but you don't care. It's like, this is fun.
Well, it was like watching, like the managerial staff from a Hot Topic just go to like a spooky house and then just get confrontational with like the ghosts as if they were their customers or some shit. Like, hey, if you really killed this person, you fucking show yourself now. Like they're trying to bitch the ghost out and that shit.
That was so awesome.
It's like, what are you gonna do? Kill him again? Like you've got
bro ghost hunter. That's what.
Hey, yeah, the ghost. If there is a ghost there, it's just sitting back and saying, "What are you gonna do?"
Yeah,
it's like I'm gonna come give you a heart attack later.
Or worse, I'm gonna make your hair stay like that. Oh.
I'm gonna scare you so bad your face is gonna stick that way, just like your dad told you it would.
I might have actually been to the Western State Asylum. Not as
there
a
was.
guest.
I know there was I think it was actually on Scariest Places on Earth. There's a sanitarium somewhere in Central Oregon that I'd actually been to. Never went in because it was like, if you go in here, something is probably going to fall on your head and you're going to die. Signs out there, but
there is something scary in here, and it's mold. You want a respirator?
I don't know, man. Like, so there were a lot of like these old sanitariums and insane asylums where like legitimately horrific shit went down. Like, you want to know why the U.S. like mental health apparatus just disappeared overnight? It was because of places like the one down in Laurel. I think it's Forest Haven or whatever. But like as a kid, we would go and do like the urban exploration shit, and like you can just walk through, and there are like smears of blood that have never been cleaned up. Like everything is rotting away and that shit, but you can still find like folders and folders of Social Security cards from like patients that were there. But then occasionally you'll come across a room that is swept clean, right? And it's like somebody is living here still. And it might be homeless or it might be MS-13 because they use those places as like drug drops and shit like that. And there's a reason that it's like swept clean and you have like this fucking blood covered mattress in the corner and shit like that. You're just like, well, fuck. That shit was scary. Yeah, there was like the history giving it like this haunted vibe, but it was also because like you could legitimately run up against somebody who would fuck you up for being on their turf and shit like that. So,
and
I mean,
MS-13 does have a history of human sacrifice to the devil. So
yeah, which it's and they were operating around the DC Metro Maryland area at the time, so
yeah.
kind of still are, but it's not nearly as bad as it used to be. But, yeah,
But,
Yeah, that's like my only actual. I don't have any firsthand ghost stories. I can't say not for lack of trying. I just lived my life. Never seen any ghosts. Like, sorry, ghosts.
I thought you were going to say I've been to so many seances and they won't talk about it.
and I can always tell it was the idiot running it with his knee under the table. Damn it.
No, I like to imagine that Mike is just disappointed that like the ghost won't pay attention to him. Just like it's like being a statue profile pic on Twitter. It's just nobody pays attention to me.
It's like, seances, Ouija boards. It's all like, it's just a good way for people to just mess with each other, So definitely don't burn a Ouija board. Those are dangerous.
No, I would absolutely burn a Ouija board.
Yeah.
I will burn you.
There are some things that like legit exorcists will warn you not to screw with, and Ouija boards are one of them.
The idea isn't that the item itself is dangerous; it's that you willingly and yet ignorantly allowing or inviting something in, and you don't know what you're inviting in, and also like there aren't like fucking rules to this shit that like the ghost has to follow or anything like that. Like that's fucking horseshit. So that's why they would warn against that stuff. It's not because the piece of cardboard and the plastic thing on it itself is dangerous. It's the act that you're using it to facilitate.
Yeah, I remember seeing somebody mentioned the Hasbro Luigi board. And yes, I'm saying Luigi board. If you don't get the reference, put it into YouTube, find the video, you'll thank me later.
I always called it the Ouija board.
Yeah, it's hard to say. But I remember when they advertised them on TV when I was a kid, and I guess some parental groups got outraged over it. And though I do, there's a video out there somewhere of just some guys, like apparently his little sister and her friends are upstairs either playing with a Ouija board or watching or doing a seance or something, and he flips the breaker so the light goes off upstairs. You just hear them all screaming, these muffled screams coming from the wall.
So unfortunately it's been too long, so I can't necessarily remember the details of the story because I was kind of making it up as I went along, but I told two different versions of the story in two different places. But I called it the blue light story because part of it involved like before things really get weird, start seeing this vague blue light out in the woods. Well, the second time I told it, I had somebody with a flashlight and a plastic shopping bag out in the woods. Yeah. And it took about 2 or 3 flashes before somebody noticed, and then the screaming started.
I mean, nowadays you don't even need the trash bag. You just need one of those like standard issue moonbeams that you fucking come with the blue lens that you can put over it.
Well, one of the classic stories up at the scout camp where I used to work was called the Green Eye Story. And that was 2 Indiglo watches.
Pavlo John is talking about apparently seances and Luigi boards were all the rage back in the 20s for some reason. So the late 1800s, early 20th century era. I don't know whether it would be like 50 years or 60 years, but that time frame between Darwinism and World War II, people got super into like mysticism, right? Like the spiritual mediumship and communicating with spirits and all that nonsense, to a degree that we as modern people don't even feel comfortable enough like recognizing as a real possibility of just how popular this shit was. And a lot of the stuff that came out of World War II actually does kind of go back to like that was a legitimate area of interest that wasn't just a hobby, but like people legit believe this stuff. So yeah, it's like it was one of those interesting things about like the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes movie. It was like I thought it was actually very interesting and well done that they had like that secret society of the Hermetic Dawn and all that shit going in there, and that was a main plot point because Arthur Conan Doyle was into this stuff as well, and also that stuff was happening around that time frame. So it was like they used to have like gigantic fucking temples, like the size of embassies or legit cathedrals that were dedicated to this like secret magic fucking societies and that shit. And it was all like the wealthiest fucking people because you had to pay to get in. It was Scientology before Scientology, but it was so like a lot of the people that were into this shit were the influential class, like the actors, the fucking poets, the philosophers, the college educated people. Socialites, bankers, all of them, they were super into this shit. And so it like now if I tried to explain it to you, you'd be like, this is like some Alex Jones conspiracy about the Masonic Temple and that shit. It's like, no, guys, like they did this shit. And it was only until like after World War II that like it kind of went down in popularity. But that's also where we get like theosophy and all that shit. Because one of these people, Madame Elena Blavatsky, who was like a Russian aristocrat that lived in London, went over to the fucking Orient and came back and just decided to like compile all their various creation myths into one thing and then try and tie it to the mysticism movement and that shit. And that's why like the Nazis thought that they descended from Atlantean giants and that shit. And the Jews ruined the genetic purity, and so we had to re-evolve into giants, and that's how we were gonna soar into the future. Like this is real stuff that they believed.
And if you think that like no way these guys are rocket scientists, they couldn't have possibly been into this stuff. Like they dedicated significant, huge amounts of manpower and material to the Holocaust, even as they were losing the fucking war. That's how I believed in this stuff.
I feel bad for laughing at that. I thought you were going to talk about investigating the possibility of Rill.
That too.
The Holocaust.
That too. Yeah. Rill was just something that they made up, but they thought it was real.
No, they didn't make it up. One of the most famous and popular British authors of the mid to late 1800s made it up. But he was on a eugenics craze because like after Darwinism came out, like guys, eugenics wasn't a fringe belief. Like everybody was jumping in on this shit. Like, yeah, we can breed ourselves into perfection and that stuff. And so like the story is like Vril, the power of the coming race or something. Yeah. And it's one of those shitty, like just the most boring adventure stories ever. It's kind of like the Shangri-La story and all that shit. Like same stuff where it's just like, this is just people waxing philosophical in like a fucking bullshit place. Like this isn't actually interesting, but it was a bestseller. Yeah. So it was about like some guy burrows underground and finds a secret society of like future angel people that are rendered perfect because they have the power of Vril, which is like this energy stuff that just flows underground. And so the Nazis dedicated a non-negligible amount of resources, time, effort, and lives into investigating how they could get their hands on Vril to win the war.
So, yeah. But they had so many PhDs in their ranks, Coop.
Look, man, you've got to be highly educated to be this stupid. But I mean, that's how it is.
Yeah. So Croak is plugging my stuff, so I had to put Croak's comment up there. Actually, it's like some of the stuff in Jed Horn I make up, and some of it I pull from other places. Like there's there are at least a couple of monsters in Something in the Dark that I snagged from local Indian mythology. But
I gotta be, dude. Is there a genre you haven't dipped the toe in the water in for yet?
Romance.
Now, what do you think Jed Horn is? I mean,
It's the final frontier, Pete.
well, I suppose that depends on whether you're using the new version of the word or the old version of romance, which is just an adventure story. In which case, I have written romances. They're just the old kind. But
oh man, I'm trying to imagine like Pete, how he would write a cozy mystery.
it would get really bloody really quick.
This isn't cozy at all. Oh.
It's like,
why is there a gun
fight back? It's like the librarians strike back, but like it's the librarians in the sense that like Jason Statham is a whatever aider, you know, like that generic title. It's like the librarian with Jason Statham.
Yeah, it's like
I think I know.
It's the sequel to The Beekeeper.
Yeah.
He puts the catalog back in order.
It's like everywhere we're just wearing like Christmas printed knitted tactical wear. It's like that's what makes it cozy. But also, there was a massive firefight in Chapter 3. Like,
yeah, it got cozy because of all of the heat of the. We had some forbidden popsicles in that particular fight. Melted a couple barrels down. So
there are different definitions of cozy. Okay, it's subjective.
You're heating the coffee pot with a thermite grenade? What?
For some people, being cozy is just wearing your whoopee and melting the barrel of a saw. You know, it's
I legit want to see Pete's attempt at like I know you don't do the writing prompts shit, but like if there was a way to fucking trick you into doing this, that would be hilarious.
I'm not going to be writing any stories about academics considering adultery either.
My wife listened to the 372 pages podcast about when they did the cozy mysteries about the quilters. The quilters stopping the drug ring, right? And she told me that she thinks that I think I could write a cozy mystery. Like I think you could too. It'd be better than this, you know.
Well, it's 9 parts Lifetime movie or Hallmark movie and 1 part like Clue. Like that's it.
Yeah, like it's just like very comfortable lifestyle stuff. That's just like, hey, people are planning a wedding, and then somebody got murdered too. But that's kind of secondary, you know.
I was gonna say there's like absolutely no investigation. It's just all about like the drama that causes in their little fucking social circle and their small town, and like, oh well, my favorite fucking bakery customer come back with this murder, you know, being investigated, and then in like the last chapter, they're just like, oh yeah, no, it was him.
If you were,
and of course, nobody's actually traumatized by the fact that this dude they've known for forever got stabbed to death.
Yeah, it's just. Well, she was a bitch, anyways.
You know,
no, it just. It either have to be a suddenly like going thinking it's a cozy mystery and it turns into this hyper violent hunt in the woods. It turns into the most dangerous game.
Just make Predator, but instead of putting it in the jungle, put it in like some New Hampshire village during Christmas time. Just... Shit, no, damn it! I think they already made that. They called it like AVP Requiem.
Oh,
you know, on this video,
fortunately, I never saw that abomination.
Me neither, but I know it takes place.
I saw the one before it.
I know it takes place in like the suburbs or whatever. What were you saying, Mike?
We don't speak of such things on this stream, okay?
Yeah.
It would.
Your cozy mystery would be Hot Fuzz, like it's just...
or Clue.
Shame.
No, Chazbone 88. That wasn't AVPR that had autism as a superpower. That was The Predator. That was written by Shane Black, who wrote the first one too. Like, just something about Hollywood has changed, where like nobody can fucking make anything good anymore.
Autism?
Yeah.
It's the next stage of human evolution. Be like, you fucking wish, Twitter.
You know,
So it's this cozy little cul-de-sac somewhere.
Yeah.
Except that somebody gets chopped to pieces and left in the middle of the little cul-de-sac.
I think they
And
just
then
made a
all hell
movie.
breaks loose.
I think it just
Oh
made
no,
a
they
movie
took
like
a horse
that.
from the horse farm and cut its head off and put it in one of our neighbors' beds.
I think they just made that as a movie called Terrifier 3. I don't know. I heard some things about it.
I mean,
Personally,
like
for me,
it does. The Whitpro angle does sound familiar. I'm sure I've seen some instead of it being like a cozy mystery and then Whitpro is a fucking like story element, I think it starts with Whitpro being the story element. So you kind of know what you're getting into at the beginning.
I will say for
Right.
me, like those
By that standard, nobody is a cozy mystery.
we need we need like a talking stick to accommodate for our lag here. But I'll say for me, like because everyone like when people on Twitter are talking about Terrifier 3, and it's a movie series I'd never heard of. And apparently it's hyper violent and this evil clown chops up a kid on there. Right. And
I mean, yeah, that's on par with the first two movies.
People they like to see these movies just to feel like not scared, just disturbed by the fake gore, and I'm like, I don't get that personally. That's just definitely not my bag. I don't really understand. I guess there's like a fascination with it, but
yeah, I mean, like I don't like the gore porn movies either. Like I don't like the Saw movies or Hostel or any of that shit. Like I don't like. Don't tell me it's horror and then it just be disturbing shit. Like it's got to be actually scary on some level. But they fill the same niche that horror is supposed to fill, and that's supposed to be it's a simulated traumatic event that you can experience with actually no danger to yourself, but also sharing that traumatic experience or simulated traumatic experience with somebody else. Because when you share a traumatic experience with somebody, like not relive it to somebody, but when you both go through it together, it creates like this kind of bond. And so that's why horror movies are the go-to date movie for a lot of people, right? Because now the girl kind of feels a bond with you that, you know, she honestly really has no reason to feel, but it makes you feel a little bit closer. And it's just this weird psychological trick because of human bonding reactions to going through danger and harm and scary things together. And so the gore porn movies and the hyper violent stuff kind of it acts the same way as just like straight up spooky, scary horror stuff. And same way with like explicitly especially visceral action movies too, like Saving Private Ryan or something like that, where it's not just, you know, like Hardcore Henry is a violent movie, but it's not the same feeling as like one of the very violent horror or not horror action movies, like Saving Private Ryan, Hacksaw Ridge, all that stuff, you know.
and you know, Coop, you just accidentally there gave better advice for how to impress a chick on a date than like all the Manosphere bros out there. Good job.
Well, they're not there to teach you how to impress women. They're there to teach you how to hate women. So I mean,
Well, likewise,
I don't go to fucking horror movies like as a dating idea. Anyways, I just my perfect horror movie is not actually a horror movie. It's like Dog Soldiers. You know what I mean? Like it's like it's kind of scary, but it's really cool.
Yeah, Dog Soldiers is probably the best werewolf movie ever made.
Oh yeah, and it's hilarious to me, like how bad the werewolves looked in there, but how good of a movie it was.
Yeah,
and also it's like watching like a legit foreign film because even though they're speaking English, I can barely understand any of them.
But yeah, I've never cared for the slasher movie, the torture porn, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
If it's gonna be scary, it needs to be uncanny.
Yeah.
Which is why that's kind of why I write the kind of spook stories that I do. That there's definitely like something is not right here, and not in a mundane sort of not right.
Yeah, I mean, like that's what I like. That's my kind of disturbing that I like, because if you think about it, there's got to be at least like two different forms of disturbing, or two types. And like I said, there's got to be at least two, but I'm only talking about two right now. One is like disturbing, like oh, it's just body horror. It's just or not body horror, but it's the violence and the torture porn shit, and it's disturbing because there's some like weird little signal in your brain. It's like, this seems violent. I could get hurt. I want to get out of here. But because you as a person know it's a movie, you're not leaving in that stuff. But you still get that same effect. The other form of disturbing is something is not right. Like there's enough here that it seems familiar, but there's just a couple of things off. And so now I'm hyper alert. And now I'm like trying to figure out what's real, what's not, what should be here and what shouldn't, and how much danger am I in. You're constantly trying to assess the threat, which is shit that we all train for. So Pete, it's no wonder that you like that version better. And so that those are two different kinds of disturbing. One falls in more towards the uncanny valley, and that would be like that's where ghosts come into, because at its core, you know that the ghost isn't supposed to be there, right? Or if it's like somebody is just a little bit off physically, you're not disturbed by them. It's like, oh, a hunchback or an ugly person, fuck that guy. Like it's like this weird kind of shapeshifter vibe, right? Like something's going on with somebody that it shouldn't be going on. So you have that. And then on the other side, you have like the torture porn, which is just like, somebody's getting really fucking hurt. And I don't like that. And that's, but one's easier to make than the other, because one takes craft, the other takes special effects and audacity.
Yeah. And the craft is rarely there anymore.
Yeah.
Even when they try to do it, like The Conjuring.
You mean jump scare in the movie?
Yeah. To be able to
jump scares is another thing, though. It's like because Mike was saying, like The Grudge, it was mainly jump scares, but they were very effective, right? It's not that jump scares are inherently bad. It's just that they're very easy to do poorly.
I think,
but that means they're easy to do, right? So a lot of people will lean on that when they don't have the skill to do scary other ways, right? And that's when it comes off as cheap, and that's when people get annoyed with jump scares. But jump scares in and of themselves do kind of have merit. It's just shitty jump scares don't.
One thing that The Grudge did well, it didn't completely rely on jump scares, number one. A lot of the scares in there would be like a mundane scene, and something would be going on in the background that you kind of had to notice, you know? And those are well done because it looks normal and safe, and then something's that, did I see that? What the fuck was that?
It's always out of focus, and you're just seeing like the blur in the background move, and you're just like, is it supposed to be moving? Is that the wind? Is that... It goes back to that threat detection response I was talking about.
The shadow that goes past the doorway in the background,
right?
And it's not supposed to be there.
The less the movie actually focuses on it, the better, the more effective it is.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Because it's letting getting in your head. It's letting your imagination do most of the
exactly.
work.
Your imagination is the best special effect any movie can ever make.
Yeah.
So. And then on the flip side, you have like a jump scare that is just a straight up jump scare. It's like Army of Darkness when he's in the pit and like he's trying to get out of the way of the spikes, and he goes up against like that fucking grunge that's all up in the back, and then that fucking like goblin thing just jumps out at him, and he's like, ah! It's like that's everybody's reaction because you should expect it, but you don't, and it's just so like in your face that like it's an effective jump scare. It's a cheap jump scare, but it's an effective one.
Yes.
Mike has absolutely played Fear. He doesn't shut up about that game.
I love Fear. That game. Oh God. After playing the first time, it was hard to play with the lights off, but this was so good too. Though it wasn't just the scares; it had a really good combat system.
Our saw gunner, my first team, handed me the discs and said, "You got to play this, but you got to do it alone in the dark with headphones on."
See, I didn't mind Fear, but I didn't latch onto it because, yeah, the combat system might have been good, but like I was so sick of the ring at that point, and this was very clearly like, dude, let's just do the ring, but with assault rifles. So
yeah,
which to be fair is always an improvement, but
and it really does rely on jump scares almost entirely. For the spook factor.
I mean, jump scares are. I'm trying to think of a horror video game that doesn't use jump scares, and I can't. Like it's built into the industry on that one.
There are some that have, but it's more difficult, because especially if it's a shooter game where the player is already alert and amped up and has a way of dealing with enemies. It's like. But, now there's a whole genre of indie horror games, Steam trash, where you just get chased around a place by a scary guy. It's just streamer bait. So,
it's just like an even worse version of RE3.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's how, what's that guy's, the Markiplier, that's how he made his whole channel. Was getting the piss scared out of him by digital scary guys chasing him around the dark.
I mean, it's a better way to make a living than having real scary people chasing around in the dark.
I'm gonna make a confession. I like Markiplier. He did a video where he's just testing out bright lights from Amazon, like the ones that have the ridiculous 2 million lumen claims. He's just sitting in a dark room, turning all these things on, just reviewing them. It was just. And he had one where he's testing Amazon self-defense products on himself, like stun guns and other kind of bullshit you can buy from there.
I mean, I know he's a big name. I don't think I've ever watched an actual Markiplier video, but I do know he's popular and he's been around for a while. But the only real thing I know him from is that he was one of the guys that really pushed and supported the Astartes videos when they were first coming out in a steady stream. So, I mean, I'll respect him for that because those fucking videos are awesome. But
Droopy, I have never played Witch Hunt, but I've seen a couple YouTubers play it. It's a first-person game, like an indie game, where you're like a Puritan-era witch hunter in 1600s New England, and you got to go out and battle this witch and her minions, and there's a Black Phillip goat that makes an appearance in there, and you end up really.
They finally made a Solomon Kane game.
That definitely was probably an inspiration, yeah. Stalker as a horror game, yes. Stalker had some legitimately scary parts in it when you were playing it for the first time, right? Like the first time you go into that bunker and you're after the Geist and they starts levitating things and throwing them at you. And yeah, that was pretty scary. And the bloodsuckers that could turn invisible and just appear out of nowhere. There were definitely some horror elements there.
You know what game scared the crap out of me as a kid? Half-Life. When you go into the alien dimension or whatever the fuck it was, and everything's and it you're all alone. There's no other things that can distract the enemies for you, and the lights going in and out. That part got me. And then also, because I was young enough at the time, the first time you encounter the Flood in Halo, which is a feat in and of itself because like the flood is absolutely retarded as a concept in that game. We've been over this, but the first time you run into them, man, it's scary, and the setup to it is fucking amazing. Like where you're just seeing a bunch of dead Covenant that you didn't kill, and you're like, oh, that's weird. The Marines with me aren't that good. Like fucking.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the scary moments in video games. Fallout games have had a couple of them because they put some like Lovecraft Easter eggs in Fallout. Right? There's one in Fallout 3 where you visit the Dunwich building, and that's pretty good. In Fallout 4, you can actually find this quarry. There's like it goes underground, and you read these emails of people who just lost their minds there, and they're like, apparently like the supervisor was in some kind of a cult, and there's hallucinations and stuff. And of course, all the email computers still work 200 years later with no power because Fallout. Like, well, you can't make fun of the lore. You don't understand. And at the very bottom of it, you find like the ghouls that were all the cult members, and there's actually like a face carved into stone at the bottom of this pit of water down there. So that was pretty good. It's very completely out of place in this setting, but it's Fallout. Who cares? You can put anything in Fallout.
Yeah, nothing's actually out of place in Fallout. I don't remember if it's the first one or the second one. There's a Star Trek shuttle somewhere out in the wasteland that you can find. The half of those games were inside jokes to begin with.
And for those of you guys who are wondering what I'm talking about, I got absolutely ratioed on Twitter when the Fallout TV show came out because I said don't bitch too much if they change the lore for the show because the lore is dumb. Changing it might actually make it better. It might make it make more sense.
Yeah, unfortunately, their changes didn't. Like, they just changed it to be equally stupid.
And the kids just they were not okay with that. I had kids who weren't born yet in 1998 telling me about how from the lore of the first Fallout game. Like, shut up, kid. Shut up.
Mike, let me explain why you got the backlash you did. It wasn't because they were actually legitimately defending the honor of the lore. It's because they've had so many times in the years running up to this where a property they've liked and was a part of their growing up, it meant a lot to them, gets adapted and changed into something stupid that completely disregards the lore and all that shit. And every time they fight back on that, they get told, you shouldn't care about this because it's a movie about space wizards, right? Or you can accept, elves and orcs and all that shit, but you can't accept, black people or something like that. It's all these very disingenuous responses to their concerns with what they enjoy is being changed for the worse or whatever. So when they come up to Fallout, even though you're right, the lore is silly and it was never about being internally consistent or making sense. It was about being fun and all that. All they hear is the same shit they've been told over and over and over again by people who were not acting in good faith. And that's, you care too much about this thing that I don't care about. Therefore, you're wrong for caring about it. That's all they hear. So it's an emotional response to what you're saying. It's not a logical response to what you're saying.
As someone who grew up and came up being a fan of Terminator and Wing Commander, and my heart goes out to them for having adaptations ruin the things they love. Like, I have no idea what that's like. You're right. I'm just a boomer. But so I get it. But it's just like, guys.
No, but then they just see you as surrendering. It's like, well, you didn't fight back on it, and now we got even worse shit. Like the deluge didn't stop. Now I know it's unfair to be like, well, if only Mike was there to hold the line, but like this is what's going through their minds and that stuff. And they're not new; they are younger. They haven't.
Twitter hadn't been invented yet. So you had to just complain to your friends instead of the whole world. But
It's like, kid, I was up playing Fallout until 2 a.m. before you were born.
Yeah. But I mean, like, we had the luxury of coming up during an era where like video games really didn't have to make sense lore wise. Like, have you ever seen the old Ultima games? Like, it's Dungeons and Dragons, but they're like spaceship levels that you have to fucking fly and that shit. Like it's just whatever the game designers thought would be fun or funny, or it was an inside joke. They decided to put it in because they
You're
could.
right, but like Fallout was one of those games.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like,
but that's not what they came up with. And also when they're talking about like, you know, the Fallout lore and that shit, they're talking about New Vegas. They're not talking about Fallout 1 and 2. Okay? Like they're talking about the best of the Bethesda era games, which was New Vegas and that shit. And they latched onto that, and it to them it felt like the TV show adaptation went out of its way to target New Vegas and change the stuff that game established. And there was like various theories as to why. One of them was that New Vegas was the one game that Bethesda itself didn't work on in house, so that was the one that they wanted to like scrub, even though it was the most popular one. So I don't know. I wasn't there shouting at you. I wish I could because it's one of my favorite hobbies. But I'm just telling you like why you would get this response.
I understand why. I just thought it was. I thought it was funny for that, and there was a lot of like yelling at me for something that they thought I said that I obviously didn't say.
Right.
Then a lot of you just don't know the lore. Like I looked up a lore book from one of the original creators from Fallout 2, like from 2002. So you want to be an autist on the internet, kid? Try me, okay?
One of the big bad for Fallout 2 was a power armored Secret Service agent named Frank Horrigan. Now, most of these kids probably wouldn't get that reference, but
you mean the Punisher?
Oh
no, Frank Horrigan as a Secret Service agent named Frank Horrigan was a Clint Eastwood character.
Yeah. Oh, one of John Malkovich's best movies.
John Malkovich has been in a good movie.
You know, yeah. John Malkovich is one of those characters that has been in a lot of movies, and you know, therefore some of them are going to be good, and a lot of them are going to be trash.
Now, I'm not really like much of a cinephile, so if I had to name a John Malkovich movie off the top of my head, I think he was in Red, and I think he was in Being John Malkovich, which I understand was terrible.
I mean, he better be in that movie, but he's been in a fuck. I know he's been in a lot of movies. I just can't name him off the top of my head because I never remembered his.
He just disappears into the character. You know, you don't even know he was there. He's like
the character's always John Malkovich playing with John Malkovich. So
I never watched the movie. I did watch the Riff Tracks version of it. He was in fucking Aragon.
Oh God, really?
Yeah.
Was he a dragon? What?
Yeah, he was their Emperor Palpatine version thing.
Oh.
And he just would constantly like phone his lines in.
Yeah. Well, again, like I said, John Malkovich playing John Malkovich.
He was in Con Air. Yes, that is.
Oh shit! Yeah, he was. I mean, you think about that movie, all you remember is the airplane and Nicolas Cage's mullet. You know, but there was more going on there.
Oh, dude, that movie has aged gracefully. At the time, it was just a dumb action movie, and now I'm just like, bro, this is high art. This is fucking the finest cinema I've seen in like the past 5 years.
Oh, The Rock. I mean, come on.
I mean, that came out like a year beforehand, though, and I mean, like,
it's like we were
old '90s movies.
It's like we were talking not too long ago that The Rock soundtrack, I think, is some of Hans Zimmer's best work.
Yeah, it's so great.
It is peak action thriller music. Nothing that has come since has matched The Rock's soundtrack for action movie music.
And the stuff by Hans Zimmer that does is basically just him like rearranging the notes from The Rock. Like, which Hans Zimmer, he likes to quote himself. Go back and listen to the Gladiator soundtrack, Pirates of the Caribbean soundtrack, and The Rock soundtrack. And then like see how long it takes before you're like, wait, which soundtrack am I listening to? Because it's all like a lot of the motifs are all the same. And then
You run there. Like I said, there are a few composers, movie composers, you run into with that, like Steve Jablonsky, Jerry Goldsmith. If you listen to the 13th Warrior and the Mummy, it's like, wait a minute,
yeah,
I just heard this.
which I mean, on one hand, they get a lot of work, so they have to constantly put out new stuff.
Yeah,
And after a while, it's like, at what point are you just like, I mean, what I really want to do here, I already did fucking 10 years ago in this movie. What am I going to do? Sue myself? Like, sure, I'm just going to use it and change the homework around a little bit. Like, fucking, why not? But
we're going to circle back to things that scared us. Let me see if I can. I read this book when I was a kid, right after it came out. And
ABC's The Sesame Street? No.
It should be on the screen. Can you see it?
Tales for the Midnight Hour.
Yes. There was a story in there called The Face, where, The Hag. There was another story about Vegas. They played on the old myth of the hag that would steal your breath, right? And it was a face that would appear over the bed. I remember sitting in bed reading this with the lights on. I was home alone because my mom was working. And it's like my hair was all standing up. I was expecting this face to materialize in front of me at any second. I scared myself stupid reading this book. Because I have a very overactive imagination. Always have. So
I can't say how old I was because I don't remember reading Dracula by myself in my room at night. And the part where he's climbing up the wall of the castle just creeped me out.
Direct quote, like a lizard. Like,
yeah.
I honestly think that Bram Stoker's Dracula movie, the one from like 1992, it was weird.
Gary Oldman.
The one with Gary Oldman?
I think he really tried with that one, though. He really, that was an act of love. There have been a lot of bad Dracula adaptations too. So,
out of all the Dracula movies, that one is the most true to the book. It's also why a lot of people dislike that one over all the others, is because they grew up with like the Bela Lugosi Dracula and all the second and third hand, hand-me-down story adaptations of Dracula and that stuff. So they don't really know what the original story was about, which is why they're so weirded out. It's like, wait, it's a bunch of gentlemen, a fucking like polymath from the Netherlands, and a cowboy just like hanging out, fucking killing stuff. And it's like, yeah, I mean, they do a lot of blood transfusions. They go find some mental patient that's killing rats, and then they fight a shitload of gypsies to stop one of the main guy's former real estate clients from moving to London. It's
now I don't know if you've seen the masterpiece that is Dracula AD 1972, but it has two guys from Star Wars in it. It's got Christopher Lee and the guy that played Grand Moff Tarkin, right? I can't
Peter
remember.
Cushing.
Yeah. And they're playing Dracula and one of the descendants of the vampire hunter. And
Van Helsing.
It's a British movie from 1974, I think, and it's so cheesy, but it's hilarious. But I've heard Bram Stoker's Dracula. I've never read it, but it's a good book. It wasn't a good book, The Lair of the White Worm.
Yeah. Well, the actual Dracula book, it was definitely written in a different time. So if you're not hip to the style, it's going to be a dense read. But it's all written as diary entries and newspaper clippings. Like that's it. There's what's up?
There are some letters in there too, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. But everything is correspondence and record. There's no actual, like omniscient narrator or POV narrator. It's people communicating to other people. And a lot of it is diary entries and that stuff. So like halfway through the book, because it changes from John Harker to Mina Harker. Like there's like half a chapter is dedicated to her explaining like, wow, his shorthand is weird. I'm gonna have to figure this out. And so there's like transcription errors and shit. And so it's like it gets real meta with the narration. So if you're not into that, sorry, it's gonna be a hard read. The actual story of Dracula though is very compelling. And a lot of like the vampire stuff a lot of the stuff that we associate with like the vampire mythology isn't there because he went back to the legendary roots of vampirism, not the pop culture roots of vampirism that kind of wasn't there at the time when he wrote it. And also, Dracula's not just a vampire. He's also dabbled into witchcraft, and he's a like sorcerer as well. So a lot of his powers come from that aspect, and his like deal with the devil, not his vampirism. So his vampirism really just gives him like he's able to live forever as long as he he doesn't age, and he has to feast on blood, right? His powers, as it were, come from his satanic witchcraft bullshit. Go ahead.
I kind of tried to go into the same sort of vein the one time that I did a vampire in the Jed Horn stories.
Yeah, well, not just the Jed Horn stories, but also the Lost.
Yeah, because the way I did it is that the vampire is given unnaturally long life by that deal with the devil.
Yeah,
and it's mainly because he's absolutely terrified because as soon as that deal falls through and he dies, he's going to hell and he knows it.
Yeah. It's weird about those deals with the devil. The devil always fucking.
Why would you make a deal with the devil? You're like, it's like, what in the history of media and culture makes you think that that's going to work out for you, right? Like, that devil guy, he sure seems like a straight shooter.
Okay, Mike, I get it. But at the same time, immediate benefit. Yeah. That's usually where they go. Bro, fucking you have people who are part of the Satanic Temple now and are getting nothing out of it. So
well, no, they're getting the satisfaction of outraging their parents who made them go to church. And
that would be the worst story. Is like you have a bunch of vampires or whoever who like gain powers from deals with the devil, but they're all like the most insufferable Redditors.
I think didn't one of the characters in What We Do with the Shadows like that? I mean,
maybe. I don't know which one. To my mind, Taika Waititi is also an insufferable Redditor. So I'm not.
The one of the something I saw someone bring up on Twitter that I thought was interesting. There's like this kind of lore, and it's in a lot of Americana like folklore, right? Of this idea that the devil is just someone who could be walking among you, and he's there to like make a deal with you. You know, obviously a fiddle deal, possibly, but not necessarily a lot of stories from American folklore about.
Well, the fiddle deal wasn't a deal; it was a challenge, and he lost, even though he fucking cheated with this band of demons that joined in.
But there's a lot of that, and I know that's even older than American. It goes back to the Faustian bargain and everything. But that comes up a lot in American song and folklore and mythology, and I just think it's interesting. It's an interesting take on the devil. Like, no, he isn't just some dark evil power. He's really petty, and he wants to just come fuck with you personally when you're having a bad day.
I mean, theologically, it works because any soul he can separate from God is a win for him, and it doesn't matter how he does that. And a theme you'll run into is you kind of like you thread the rope that you're going to hang yourself with. So if you decide to go to the crossroads to make a deal with the devil or something, he might just very well show up because why not? So like that's where that comes along with, right? That's how that works in that sense. But it's not like fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger in End of Days where like the devil is just like bombing banks and shit like for no fucking reason.
I knew there was a reason I never saw that movie.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of reasons why not to see that movie. But before we forget, because you brought it up, Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee worked on the same movie together. Did you know that they were both heavily into like wargaming miniatures? Now, Games Workshop wasn't a thing back then, so it was like the little lead soldiers that they would fucking paint and fit in formation and study autistically old uniforms so they could get everything right.
I may have heard that, but it absolutely does not surprise me.
So, I've actually seen a picture of Peter Cushing.
Well, Peter Cushing was interviewed, and like they brought a TV crew in his house and like recorded him painting this stuff and like cross-referencing encyclopedias of Napoleonic uniforms and shit like that. But the fact that both he and Christopher Lee were into this stuff and then worked on a movie together, I want to believe that after they were done with work for the day, they went off and like got their minis out on the table and started like fucking actually playing war games with.
They probably did.
Oh yeah.
You know, that kind of reminds me of that one Bond villain who had like the elaborate miniature with the setup with the music with the sound.
That was M. Bison.
What?
I said that was M. Bison.
No, he's played by. He was played by. Oh my God, he was in Mitchell. He was in.
Bo. Shit, what's his name? He was the guy in Walking Tall as well, right?
Joe Don Baker. Yes.
Yeah. That's it.
Bond. Yeah, he was that renegade wannabe general guy. That James Bond. He got crushed by a statue of he get crushed by a statue of like some fucking British general, I think, or something like that. It's so stupid. But yeah.
Oh, getting back to Dracula, like we can't list off Dracula movies without touching on Dead and Loving It.
I mean, one of the worst Mel Brooks movies, and yet still better than most comedy movies that came after it.
Yeah.
I just like when he's trying to like mind control the girl to come out of the building, and so he's having to give like the most specific detailed instructions.
No, you stay there. You come here. No.
Earlier this year, I think, or it may have been last year, my wife and I watched. It was that movie where Nicolas Cage plays Dracula, and it's about his assistant, his thrall.
The vampire's assistant.
Renfield, yes. Yeah. It was funny. And Nicolas Cage actually did a good job channeling like the Bela Lugosi Dracula. Obviously, he was Nicolas Caging it,
Right.
But I mean, it's not a serious film. I don't know how it sits in the Dracula lore or whatever, but it was hilarious.
I mean, I don't think everybody says Nicolas Cage will take any role he's offered. No, that hasn't been true for like the past 10 years. Nick Cage will take any role that isn't in a serious movie. Like he knows what he's about. Like he's not gonna go for a dramatic film. He's gonna go for like, all right, what's fucking the craziest indie style bullshit we can?
The Colorado Space.
Yeah.
Willy's Wonderland.
Mandy.
They made a Five Nights at Freddy's movie before they made a Five Nights at Freddy's movie.
He actually made one just straight up poking fun at himself.
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
The unbearable burden of massive talent.
Something like that. Yeah.
All right, guys, it's been 2 hours and some change, so we should. Oh God, no, we're gonna. I wish I could upload video clips so we could watch that clip of Abed having his meltdown as Nicolas Cage.
Wait. What if? All right, I know AI has gotten pretty good. We do Con Air, but we just switch John Malkovich and Nicolas Cage. So John Malkovich is just like the do-gooder ranger that had lethal hands for weapons, just trying to get back home. And then Nick Cage is Cyrus the Virus. Who wouldn't want to watch that? All right, like, come on. Hollywood, give me a call. I can advise more than just authors.
Lord of War is one of those movies that people like for the reason that the movie's makers didn't intend, and they get mad about that. You know, like, no, you're not supposed to like him. He's bad. Like, yes, but you made him likable. So
Yeah,
what are you gonna do?
The actual guy is a fucking piece of shit, and he's not worth a fucking female basketball player we traded for him.
No.
But in the movie, like, you can't make him. It's the same with like the dog or the War Dogs movie. Like, both of those guys are actual fucking assholes. But in the movie, you know, like, the Miles Teller's character is likable and that stuff, because that's what Hollywood does. They have to make you like the character, unless it's a Star Wars movie in which they're incapable of it. But
the character doesn't like sand.
Oh man, it just. But yeah, so yeah, Lord of War. It's their version of like Rorschach. Like how Alan Moore absolutely fucking hates that people like Rorschach from Watchmen. You know?
Yeah.
And I think from what I've heard, they've got the same reaction. People who like Homelander from The Boys. Now, I don't want The Boys. I don't care for comic book adaptations. I especially don't care for deconstructed superhero adaptations. You know, that are.
I just don't care for Garth Ennis.
Full of sex. You know, that's just whatever. But they get mad that people like the character. Like, you guys made the character. You made him like this, and now you're mad that people like him.
Well, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. I haven't watched The Boys since like halfway through season 1 is when I noped out. But from what I've seen from or heard from talking with people and seen on Twitter and that shit, it's not even that people like Homelander because Homelander is likable. They like him because he's the only interesting part of the fucking show.
That too.
So, if you didn't want people to like Homelander, you should have made a different character that was more interesting. Like, and especially since Homelander's not the fucking main character of the show, that tells you fucked up.
Right? I mean,
you keep seeing more of it than I have, so.
The guy they're making the memes out of, that's usually people's favorite character. You know,
Yeah.
That's the one who's sunk in with the audience.
That's why
character,
you know,
you fucked up. Sorry. All right,
that's
guys.
why Anakin is my favorite character. It's because all the memes, and not just the memes, but the women and children too.
Well, folks, you almost just saw an assassination on screen.
Somebody spit water all over my camera.
All right. Well, one last point on the spooky stuff. When you're telling a spook story, particularly if you're in the woods after dark, the way you know that you've done it right was that you're starting to wonder if you're about the stuff you talked about on your way back to your tent in the dark.
I got nothing for it. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, guys. Thanks for stopping by. Well, I was going to do a bit where I say the lines from the end of the Beverly Hillbillies closing, but I don't remember it now because I'm tired. So, see you next month.
That's okay. You'll just hallucinate it.
Yeah.
I hope so.
All right, folks. We'll try to be a bit more consistent going forward. See y'all next month.
All right. Take it easy, guys.